The Zoroastrian World, a Demographic Picture. We have with us Mrs. Roshan Rivetna, who is deeply committed to perpetuating the Zoroastrian religion, customs and traditions in the diaspora. She is best known for her stewardship of the Fizana Journal, from a fledgling newsletter to a world-class magazine. She has an MS in nuclear physics from the University of Pittsburgh and has pursued a career in science at Atomic Energy Establishment in Trombay, and is also now part of the AT&T and Bell Laboratories. Ladies and gentlemen, a loud round of applause for Mrs. Roshan Rivetna.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate your stamina to stay on till the last session of the day, and a session that is starting 2 hours late. So I really appreciate that. And I thank the Congress organizers for giving me this opportunity. I really have been working hard to put these numbers together. And what I'd like to do is, the numbers have been collected, the data for the demographic and population around the world has been collected through a Fizana survey. And to lend some modicum of credibility to this, quote, magazine survey, I have requested the representatives of each country that gave me the data to come and join me on the stage. And and I hope that the people have stayed around till the end. Dr. Ekhtiyari for Iran, please come as I'm speaking and come and take your seat at the stage. Armaiti Desai for India has already expressed her regrets and she has left because it's too late. Meher Naushirwani for Pakistan, Rusi Dalal for UK, Dolly Dastur for Europe, and Mr. Darius Sitna of Germany, Neville Shroff of Hong Kong, Rusi Ghadiali and his delegate, Mr. Neville Dotiwala from Singapore, and Meher Pesania from the Gulf region, and Firoz Pestanji, who represents Arnavaz Chab, who gave me the data for Australia, and Tinas Karbari, who gave me the data for New Zealand. So I'm just inviting these people to give me some credibility for the data I'm going to present. I am going through, and I'm going to speak very fast because this is supposedly a 1-hour presentation, and now I have minus 2 hours to speak. So please excuse my just going through over it very briefly. So I'm going to talk about the Zarathustri world. First, I'm going to give you a very quick glimpse of our 3,000-year-old journey, all the way from Zarathustra onwards. And then the second part of my talk will be a demographic picture of the Zoroastrian population of the world as we have it today. So we start in Iran, in the Persian Empire, 3,500 years ago, and now we come to India in Sanjan. And then now, in the last 100 years or so, we have gone to all over the world, to UK, Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, and most recently to North America. So we start in motherland Iran, the Persian Empire, which stretched all the way from Greece to the Indus. Zoroastrianism was dominant for over 1,000 years during this Persian Empire, and especially it was the imperial religion of the Sasanian Empire. And we hope and we think that numbers were in the millions. Motherland Iran in the Dark Age, after the Arab conquest in 636 CE, through all the Islamic dynasties was the Dark Age for Zoroastrianism. And the French ambassador to Iran said in 1850, he said, only 7,000 of them are left, and only a miracle may save them from extinction. They teach a lesson that glory is not everlasting, because these are descendants of the people who once ruled the world. After the 1900s, Zoroastrian conditions eased. We've heard of Manakji Hataria, and gradually Zoroastrianism luminaries emerged in business industry. Members of parliament were Zoroastrians, and the latest is Esfandiar Ikhtiyari, who I believe has maybe not stayed around. Anyway, then there comes the exodus to India. In 936 CE, seeking refuge from the Arab oppression, Zoroastrians set out from Hormuz in 7 shiploads and landed in Zanjan. And then we all know the sugar in the milk story. Here's the first diaspora after Iran to India, on the Indian subcontinent, India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. The first 800 years with their sacred fire, the Parsis journeyed inwards and eventually established Iran Shah at Udvada in 1742. By the 1800s, under British rule, Parsis became the foremost economic figures in Bombay, and we see all these postage stamps with Parsi luminaries. They went on to blaze the trail in commerce, science, and industry, and built a reputation for integrity, industry, and philanthropy. And here's what one of the British dignitaries said of the Parsis. The Parsis are the principal native inhabitants of Bombay in regard to wealth and numbers, not only the most valuable estates, but most of the shipping of the port belongs to them, the favorites of fortune. Let us add they are deservedly so, for we find them doing very extensive acts of charity and benevolence. Now we go, that was the first diaspora from Iran to India. Now we gradually venture forth, and now we are coming to the Western diaspora. The Zoroastrians of UK are the oldest community of South Asian origin in the Western world. The majority live in the British Isles, and small numbers reside in countries across Europe. In 1724, Nauroji's Rustamji Manek Seth was the first Zoroastrian and first Asian to visit UK. 1861, ZTFE was formed, and most recently, and in 1890 to 1935, 3 Zoroastrians, first 3 Asians, and we all know about Dadabhai Nauroji, Manekji Bhaunagri, and Shapoji Saklatwala. And then now we come to recent years, our 3 Zoroastrians that we all know and honor so much, Lord Karan Bilamoria, Cyrus Todiwala, and our own Dorab Mistry have all received OBE. Presence in the Far East, Hong Kong and Singapore. In the 1800s, Parsi merchants traded along the China coast. In 1874, the Zoroastrian Charity Funds of Hong Kong, Canton, and Macau was established. Today, the Hong Kong and Singapore communities of successful businessmen and professionals have built a reputation for generous philanthropy. I believe these numbers are correct, that the $200 million Hong Kong 23-story Zoroastrian building you see on the left in downtown Hong Kong is possibly today the most valuable Zoroastrian asset in the world. Small numbers of Zoroastrians also reside in Malaysia, China, etc. And you'll see all these Parsi Road and Modi Road and Mistry Road and Ratanji Hospital. So these are all our own Zoroastrians. In Africa, the story is a little bit different. In South Africa, in 1870 to 1900s, 30 immigrants ventured to the dark continent in sailing vessels, and a second wave followed in early 1900s. They played significant roles in the colonial period during the apartheid regime and the democracy gained in 1900s. Among the earliest was a Parsi Rustamji. His grandson Sorabji Rustamji brought Mahatma Gandhi's ashes to South Africa in recognition of the prominent role Gandhiji had played. There's another island, a group of islands, the Seychelles Islands. In 1880, Mr. Temulji ventured 2,400 miles across the Indian Ocean in a small dhow to the Seychelles Islands. Today, Temulji and Company, run by 80-year-old matriarch Suna Olyaji, my son-in-law's Fuiji, is the largest general store in Mahe Island. And she writes, in a country of 100,000, our tiny community of 21 Zoroastrians still has a visible and very influential presence. In Africa, East Africa and South Africa. Now here we are in East Africa, Mombasa, Nairobi. In 1963, there were 250 Zoroastrians in civil service and professions. After the revolution in 1963, almost all left for UK, USA, Canada, or India. The Agyari and Aramga are defunct and used as a godown by the Musalmans. And I'm sure Arusi Dalal here can tell you a lot more because he grew up in Zanzibar. And here we see on the right, there's an actress, Farah Bala, a Zoroastrian lady in New York who made a trip. And here she shows a picture of Diana Darukhanawala and her 83-year-old father are the only two remaining Zarthustis now in Zanzibar. It's a very sad story. And the left is the Aramga, in Swahili, the temple of the Parsis. And they have an Aramga also, of course, that is all now gone. In Aden in 1976, the fire was ceremoniously moved out. Well, maybe I missed South Africa, did I? Okay, so South Africa, I did go through it, okay. Now we come to a little bit brighter story with the Gulf region, and that's more recently, 1960s, and they are sitting on top of the greatest pool of oil reserves in the world. Gulf region offers great business opportunities. In 1979, the population was 300 and is growing steadily, and the region has an active chapter of WZCC. And here we see Regional Director Mayor Besania. We'll hear from her shortly, who is a very active board member of the WZC Middle East. Now we come to the Western diaspora, starting with New Zealand and Australia. In 1877, the first known migrant to New Zealand was Hormusji Ratanji Shroff. He set up a hardware business, and it's still run by his descendants. In 1960s, Zarthustis seeking a better life started migrating to New Zealand, and growth has been really significant. Now to Australia, in the 1950s, migration started and has grown steadily in Sydney. Here in the picture, we see an inaugural Jashan at something called Parsiana Lodge in Auckland, New Zealand. Now we come to the latest Western diaspora. The most recent is North America and Canada. And I'm going to be a little bit indulgent here because it is my hometown. And so earliest trade relations in 1799. And this is what is from a museum in Salem, New York, in Massachusetts. And Mr. George Nichols wrote in 1799, the business was carried on by Parsis, some of the most intelligent people I have ever known, rich and very honorable in their dealings. The merchant with whom I did business, Nasarvanji Monikji, was a very fine man. And there you see his picture, which stands in a museum in Salem, Massachusetts. North America in 1851, possibly the first Zoroastrian to visit the USA. And this lady in her memoirs, again in the museum, writes, "A friend brought a real live Parsi with a tall headdress to take tea with us. It was a revelation to me that a fire worshipper could take tea like ordinary mortals. He drank his tea and ate his bread and butter quite like other folks. He spoke in a very low, cultivated, refined voice, using much better English than we did." And that was Adishar Karsejiwadia in 1851. And then there was the gold rush in 1866, possibly the first Zoroastrian to visit Canada. And then in the Western diaspora, there was a little episode where the Parsis of Baroda in 1876 wrote to the US Consul General, "Many enterprising and intelligent Parsis are desirous of emigrating to the New World, where they can, without the slightest impediment, preserve and follow the religion of their forefathers. A settlement in America has become the subject of our considerations." I think that did not come to much. First to settle in USA was Mr. Konji Rustamji Kahuji Bey, who supposedly changed his name to Antonio Gomez. Now, the first US citizen in Los Angeles was Edalji Sorabji, about whom it is said, "Mr. Sorabji was a thorough man of the world. There was little in his manner or speech to distinguish him from a cultured Englishman." And Pestanji Framji Davar was the first, his son was the first Zoroastrian born in North America. In 1900, Bikaji Balsara put on his Daglian pagri, and no, that was, sorry. He was the first one about whom the courts opined that Parsis do belong to the white race, are intelligent and well-to-do, principally engaged in commerce. First Zoroastrian Association in New York was born in 1929. Here are some Ellis Island records, which we won't go through in detail, but it's a very interesting document, and there are names of Zoroastrians, interesting names. Dasturji Dala came in 1914. His name is on the Ellis Island records. And now we come to the modern day, promoting the vision. Our Arbab Rustam Giv had the vision to establish Darimers. Fezana was established in 1987. The North American Mobids Council was established in 1992, and today there are 28 associations and 11 Darimers in North America. Now we come to the second part and most important part of our presentation about demographics. I'm going to give you the results, the findings from a 2004 survey done by Fezana and repeated again in 2012. And in big, bold letters, a disclaimer: this is not an official, statistically correct census. Data may be inconsistent, inaccurate, and incomplete, and our estimates may be incorrect. We are presenting the raw data here as gathered to get a flavor of the Zarathustri world. So here's the Zarathustri world, the demographic picture. I have grateful thanks to all the sources and to Fezana administrator. The intermarriages and marriages were given to me by Parsiana and Fezana Journal, and all my family and friends for help in making these fancy slides. So starting with Iran. Iran, I'm giving you the numbers for the past few decades, starting with 1850, when we learned that there were only 7,000 in Iran estimated. In 1986, there were 32,000, according to the Statistical Center of Iran. 1996, there were 27,000. In 2006, there were 19,000, but the estimate from Dr. Ikhtiari was 24,000. And now we come to 2012, where the estimate from Dr. Ikhtiari has been 15,000. And the Statistical Center of Iran says 25,000, but we are comparing with our estimates given to us by our esteemed Dr. Ikhtiari, who's the Member of Parliament, and he says population is no more than 15,000. And the major concerns are the census data is unreliable, there is emigration to the West, late marriages, and fewer children. And I'm sorry that Dr. Ikhtiari was present and he will endorse these numbers, but we'll move on to India. The India story was given to me by Armaiti Desai, and she had to leave because of the lateness of the session, but she gave me these numbers. And we all know these numbers starting from 1891. They have grown. The maximum was in 1941 to 114,000. And since then, they have steadily declined. And in 2001, the last census data was 69,000. And now the 2011 census results have not been given to us yet. But the estimates from TIS, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and the demographers in India and social scientists all talk about 61,000. Sri Lanka has gone down from 66 Zartustis in 2004 to 37 in 2012. And I will not go through all these other demographics. Their main concerns are late marriages, no marriage, low fertility rate, and deaths outnumber births. All this will be discussed in tomorrow's panel session, where we discuss the way forward with Indian issues with demography. We come to Pakistan. Do we have the Pakistan? Oh, okay. Okay, so we come to Pakistan. Here are the data for Pakistan. 1995, there were 2831 Zartustis. And they have gradually declined. In 2012, we now have 1675 Zartustis. And I'm going to request Mayor Naushirwani to present her report that was sent in by Toxi Kawasji, who has given the data for Pakistan.
I will read Toxi Kawasji's message to you, since she is unable to be here today. And she writes, "Dear fellow Zartustris and all Congress participants, I send greetings from Karachi, Pakistan, and I wish I was here in person to be part of the World Congress being held in Mumbai. Roshan Rivetna has requested me to send in my views on the present demographic figures in Pakistan. We are now a very small community, but a cohesive and happy one, always there for each other, which is something to be proud of. As far back as 1995, I took it upon myself to do a census of our community under the umbrella of the Karachi Zartostri Banu Mandal, as the glib figure of 5,000 was constantly being quoted since I was a young woman, being the population of Zartostis in Pakistan. It amused me that this figure had never changed from the 1950s, and as far as I knew, no one had actually done a regular census. It is amazing how efficiently and quickly it was done. A simple form was printed, and in each locality, a person was delegated to go from flat to flat or house to house, as the case may have been. This was done simultaneously in our other cities. Rather than just keep this information, an address and telephone directory was given birth to, for Pakistan, something we never had, called the A&T directory. I feel confident in saying it is probably 100% accurate. An odd person or two may have been missed inadvertently. Publishing and updating this directory gives us an accurate number of Zartostri residents in Pakistan today. In 1995, Pakistan had a total of 2,831 individuals, a far cry from the mythical figure of 5,000. And in 2012, we had a total of 1,675 Jarthostris in Pakistan. However, today, as we speak, we are a total of 1,529. In a space of 12 months, we have lost 146 individuals. Within 18 years, from 1995, when the first census was conducted, we have lost 1,302 Jarthostris. These figures are as accurate as humanly possible, but there may be an extrovert or a dozen or so individuals still listed who may have immigrated recently, but we are not yet aware of. The figures quoted do not include the few students who are studying abroad, as normally they do not return, for which we are pleased, as they have a better future elsewhere. Neither do the figures include the women who have married outside the community. However, a guess estimate would be the average age of our community living in Pakistan today is in the age group of 60s. Not many in our community who live here have married non-Zoroastrians, which may be surprising, but those who have are not ostracized or treated any differently. In fact, our Anjuman, headed by Mr. Behram Avari, has said, the women who have not changed their religion are welcome in the Agyari. Ours is a very aging population, as most of our youth left for greener pastures when they could, possibly for no other reason but to give a better future to their children. Those who remain and who are young enough to work are all doing well in their workplace. The Jarthostis in Pakistan are still sought after for jobs, having the reputation of integrity, and we have assimilated well, as is our nature. The worry today is, of course, that there are so few of us left. Many low-rent bags built by our far-sighted elders in our community lie relatively vacant. Our Parsi colony, not only in Karachi but in Quetta too, have just a handful of families living there. The relatively new colonies, known as the Cyrus Minwala colony and the Dinsha Avari colony in Karachi, are lively and thankfully full. For some time now, both Karachi and Lahore have been requesting the help from India to send us some morbeds for our 3 Agyaris. Karachi has only 6 morbeds, of which 2 are very senior in age, shared between the 2 Agyaris, and Lahore has none. The trustees of these Agyaris are more than willing to pay a generous remuneration with added perks for not only the morbeds but for their families who may accompany them. But our most urgent and dire need today is to have a decent residence for the aged, most of whom are alone, enabling them to spend their twilight years in comfort, companionship, and care. This is being read on behalf of Toxi Kawasji, Karachi, Pakistan. Thank you.
Now we go on to Great Britain, and I'm going to ask Rusi Dalal to speak to the numbers that I'm putting up on the screen, where in 2004 they had a number of 5,000, and in 2012 it's increased to 5,500. And I'll let Rusi address these numbers.
I can't see the numbers, but then of course, statistically we have got a census every 10 years, and the census of 2001, between the census of 2001 and 2011 has shown an increase of something like 10%, so our population estimate has risen from 5,000 to say about 5,500. So in fact we are on the increase, so that is a good sign so far as the England and Wales is concerned. We are the smallest religious community over there, but even then, being the smallest one, our representation at the government and non-government level is at the highest level. In terms of the change of population, what has happened is that most of the migration, the arrivals of the Zoroastrians was mainly in the 1950s from India and in the 1960s from Africa. So that was something like 60 years ago. If you add the age group of those people who went there at that time, say roughly about 25 years of age, that means those people who arrived at that particular time are reaching within the age group of about 85 years. So we are now beginning to see a higher rate of deaths, But the statistics suggest that our population has in fact increased, so it is actually balanced by the birth rate that we have. What's the net result? The net result is our population in terms of the age group is getting younger, and that is something very good. So from that point of view, it's quite healthy. We've got a very good rapport with the government, non-government bodies, and of course our connection with on the educational side. Of course, we've got the only place that we have for the Zoroastrians, we've got a chair on Zoroastrian studies at SOAS. Quite a lot of information on our dealings in England has been talked about by my illustrious successors. Both Dora Mistry and Malcolm have elaborated our relations in England, so I wouldn't go deeper into it. What are our concerns? In terms of the identity crisis, externally, we are doing excellent, as everybody knows who we are as Zoroastrians, and we have got a tremendous respect for that one. Though we have got some internal concerns of maintaining our identity, which we are trying to do by inculcating into our younger generation of what we are ourselves as Zoroastrians. That is what we are endeavoring to do. Our marriages are not as many as we would expect, because even in England the age group for the marriages is getting delayed, because even the girls are highly professional. Up to now they are holding quite good posts. In fact, the BBC, the world-renowned corporation for the broadcasting, till about a few days ago, one of the very, very senior directors or trustees of the BBC was Zareen Patel, ex-Mombasa and Africa. That is what we are trying to maintain in terms of the identity for our younger generation. Now, finally, this is what we are trying to do. This is the actual words of Lord Karan Belliamoria. What he said is, wherever you are, wherever your place of abode is, integrate with the local community, but don't forget your identity and don't forget your roots. That is what we are trying to inculcate into our children. And so from that point of view, we are quite happy in England and enjoying the stay over there. And hopefully we'll carry on multiplying and remaining as an established community in the United Kingdom.
Thank you.
I would like to clarify couple of things that she mentioned. I was born in Zanzibar. By the way, our Agyari premises have been given up, but all the afghans and the silverware and the torans and quite a lot of things have gone to Canada, where they have established the other, like the fire temple or the Dadga, as they call them there, in Toronto, in the western suburb of Toronto. All we have got from that place is the portraits of the Edenwala family, which I have brought them to England, and one toran which is in our Satayasga. But our Aramga has been maintained thanks to the fund that the BPP was holding on our behalf, which I'm lucky to be able to draw on, and from that money we are still maintaining the Aramga in Zanzibar. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we come to Europe and Central Asia, and I'm going to let Dolly Dastur, who collected this data. It's a lot of work, but I'll let Dolly give you a glimpse in a short 2 minutes.
Thank you, Roshan. The data that is presented here should be viewed as a work in progress, as it has been very difficult to synthesize the information received from the various sources. While these sources are reliable, the data they sent us at times were incomplete, and we were not sure of the overlap and also not clear whether the counts included only the born Zoroastrians of Iranian origin or also Iranians who were reclaiming their ancestral Zarathustri heritage. I can't see the tables, but in table 1 you can see the Zarathustris who have gone from India or Iran into the Central Asian countries to work or professionally, And the table 2 has those who are of Iranian ancestry who want to convert back or return back to their original religion. The data which was collected was from different sources. Rusi Dalal gave us a lot of data from there. Then David Canut, who was the PhD candidate in the École des Hautes Études in Sciences Sociales in Paris, and his research concerns the out-migration of Zoroastrians from Pakistan and contemporary diaspora in the UK and USA. Dr. Khushro Karzai Paradis, the European Center for Zoroastrian Studies in Belgium, and I've seen Dr. Khushro Paradis this morning over here, and I don't know he's present here, but he has been collecting a lot of data of people living in Belgium and Western Europe. Then Rustam Abdul Kalimazoi of Uzbekistan, and I have a little story to tell him about him after I finish this. Then there's Dilshad Azimov, a Tajik who lives in Germany. Then Mobed Kamran Jamshidi of Sweden, and he's been quite instrumental in doing the Sudre Pushi of a lot of Iranians who are wanting to revert back to their Zoroastrian ancestry. And then Behram Irani from Switzerland, who also sent us a lot of data. In April of this year, 3 Zoroastrians and myself, that means 3 years in total, we went along the Silk Route to visit Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. We were very excited to visit Uzbekistan because we had read about the 6,000 Zoroastrians who were there in the newspapers, in Indian newspapers. And so I took this pamphlet, the article with me, and I contacted Rustam Abdul Kalimazov, and he came to meet us. He came to meet us at the rest hotel, and I said, "Are there only 6,000 Zoroastrians?" And he says, "No, this is all an exaggeration. There are not 6,000 Zoroastrians, there are only about 34 of us." And he took us to meet some of them, but they were not really all Zoroastrians. They were wanting to become Zoroastrians. They were interested in Zoroastrianism, but they were not Zoroastrians. So I personally was very disappointed to know that they were not all these people. Now the influence or the experience in Tajikistan may be different, but this was Uzbekistan. And I want to give you another example of what happened in Uzbekistan. We went to Termez, which is in the bottom, at the south end of Uzbekistan, which is supposed to be the cradle of Zoroastrian civilization. And there was beautiful museums, and there were sections on Zoroastrianism, there were murals on the wall, there were ossuaries, there were artifacts, there were lots of information there. And the director of the museum told us that this is a very ancient fire-worshipping cult which is there, and it's all finished, there's nothing over there. We had not identified ourselves that we were Zoroastrians over there. So we said that we are Zoroastrians, and he was quite aghast to know that there were 3 living Zoroastrians amongst a whole variety of Zoroastrians in the world. And that's what I wanted to emphasize, that we hear of this. There is an influence of Zoroastrianism in that part of the world. They really want to become Zoroastrians, but they're not yet Zoroastrians. Thank you.
Thank you. For the Far East, Singapore, Hong Kong was 2004. 210 in 2012, it's about the same. And in Singapore, it's grown a lot by 130%.
Good evening, everyone. Actually, the first Parsis who came to Hong Kong was in the mid-1800s. But before Hong Kong, excuse me, before Hong Kong, the Parsis actually were in China. If you look at the Pearl River Delta, which is in Guangdong province, we visited the cemetery, the Parsi cemetery, which is now a heritage site. And I think the first grave there is 1734, if I'm not mistaken. So the Parsis actually went into China even well before the UK, probably. And then, of course, they went into Shanghai and the other areas of Southeast Asia. So the Zoroastrians have been in China, Hong Kong, Macau, and Japan for several centuries. There has been a significant movement into the strong economy of Hong Kong in the past decade in particular. Hong Kong's population, as mentioned by Roshan, was 210 in 2004. It stands today at about 220. And around 27% of the population is under 18 years of age, and 16% is over 65 years of age. The age range is from several months old to, I think, 96, if I'm not mistaken, today, of a gentleman. While the economy and the quality of life are very good in Hong Kong, it does not have a general immigrant visa system. If you want to move to Hong Kong, you must come with a job in place or to start your own company. While there is a strong base of families that have been in Hong Kong for generations, most young Zarathustrians who move to Hong Kong only here on an employment assignment for a few years at a time. Some of the people who do move here choose not to stay permanently because property prices, as you all know, are very high. Mortgages are available only for short terms, and mortgage requirements are very strict. Even people who have lived in Hong Kong for a long time, if they've not bought a house, sometimes decide to move out when they are older, as they cannot afford to continue renting a place into their non-earning retirement years. This is, of course, a major concern for the future of the Parsis in Hong Kong. Intermarriage has increased in Hong Kong. There are two reasons for this. Firstly, it seems that new families moving to Hong Kong are increasingly intermarried already, reflecting the situation in India and around the world. Secondly, as Hong Kong has a small population, it is hard for the youth to meet suitable matches who are Zarathustrians. Although we have formed a youth group now, and we've encouraged the youth group to get together at least once every couple of months. So again, this is a problem that's being felt in many smaller communities around the world. In response, our Anjuman has set up a youth group so that we can meet on many occasions. In the overall scheme, perhaps, social media websites such as Facebook will allow Zarathustra youth around the world to interact with each other more easily, so individual communities will not be isolated anymore. The Parsi community in Hong Kong is actually growing, despite a recent article in Time World, which some of you may have read. To conclude, there is an obvious concern for an inexorable demographic future of a shrinking nature and population worldwide, which must be the responsibility of all Zoroastrians to address, and we will do the same in Hong Kong. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The story of Zoroastrians in the Middle East or the Gulf region is a story of courageous people who went in the 50s, mainly when the oil was found. The people who went there are mainly from Pakistan and India. They came in search of employment, worked hard. Some of them have businesses of their own. Progress in the Gulf region is prompting them to stay back, and we see a certain change because of good education, etc. Now people are staying back, educating their children, getting them employed, and those who are about to retire, because of the children getting employed, are staying back. We held, under the theme of Unity Through the Sands of Time, in 2009 we held a Congress. We published Synergies, which is a prestigious publication of WZCC. After the Congress, I also authored a book to make the community proud. It's called Ashawans, A Legacy of Leadership. In that, we covered 101 eminent Zoroastrians around the world. That book is today in museum. It has been gifted to the Queen of England. It has been gifted to Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, prime ministers, and certain presidents in the world. We will be launching a new book called Fathers and Sons, Mothers and Daughters, but that is next year when we host the Enterprise Dubai program, of which I will be talking tomorrow in a little bit of more detail, and also showing a movie. We also have our own newsletter called Gavashni, and our youth are very dynamic, our people are very enterprising, and nobody wants to leave the Gulf. Believe me, it's getting better and better every day. It's the one and only constraint is after 65, if you retire, you should either have your business or you can stay back on your children's visa. Thank you very much.
I'll read out what Arnavas has written from Melbourne in short. that the Zoroastrian population of Australia has the highest percentage of seniors and the lowest percentage of youth. Comes as a startling revelation to her. I'll just cut this short pretty quick because of the time constraints.
Yeah,
Sydney has got a very senior population because that was the first part of Australia that was habited by people. The other cities like Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide are all newer cities. For example, in Perth, the first Parsi came in 1950. I think about 1930s is what Melbourne's first Parsi has come, and things like that. Mainly in Australia, the population has increased tremendously from 75 people in 1920 to 3,500 in Sydney. From about 4 or 5 in 1950 in Perth to about 450 today in 2013. So the population is growing, but the only problem is there's a lot of aging people in the country as well, especially in the eastern coast like Sydney and Melbourne. Australia also is home to a lot of migrants who have come from various parts of the world, especially the Iranian region and the Afghanistanis. And they go through a lot of extreme conflict and deprivation.
Feroz?
Yes, you're right.
We'll just cut
So
it
I'll just cut
yeah.
this short.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Although New Zealand is one of the smallest and youngest Zoroastrian communities in the world, we have increased in size from 17 in 1986 to 1,230 in 2012. We have one of the lowest intermarriage rates, representing just 3% of non-Zarathustri spouses recorded in the Zarathustri population in 2004 and 2.6 in 2012. The majority of our community are Parsi migrants from India, with only 2% of our community coming from Iran and the Middle East. And furthermore, we have one of the highest percentage rates of children and the lowest percentage rates of seniors at 24.4% for the former and 3.2% for the latter, as estimated in 2012.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to just quickly show you the numbers for Canada. Canada has grown from 5341 to 5995. That's a growth of 12%. And USA has grown from 10,794 people to 14,405. That is 33.5%. And so the whole of North America has grown from 16,769 to 2847. And as far, we have two special challenges. One, if we had come in 7 shiploads like we came to India, our story may have been different. But we came in 1s and 2s and 3s, and we settled across this huge, vast continent. Our major challenge is our dispersion. Another challenge is our ethnic diversity, because after 1,000 years of separation, now the Parsis and the Iranians are getting together on the North American continent, and we have a major confluence of our Zarathustri numbers, and our numbers are so small across the vast continent. So we try hard, we try very hard. And so to find out how do we improve, we sent out a survey, and in the next 5 slides I have all the survey responses. And the wisdom that came from the minds of these young people is really flabbergasting, and I have a lot of hope that we will overcome. So you can find all these results in the Fezana Journal that my husband Rohinton has some copies over there, and if you want to get some more, you can go on the website for the fall issue of Fezana Journal, which I'm not going to show you, but just so the Zarathustri population of the whole world is on the screen now, and I will not go through the numbers. Now it's too late. Rusi? Yeah. Oh no, but now it's too. Singapore, we've got a Rusi's person who has delegated, but yeah, but now we don't have time. He can come up, yeah, he can come up. Okay, so in 2004, the world population was 124,953, according to our magazine survey. And in 2012, it's 111,691. These are all the numbers, Iran and India, and the total populations have gone down And we estimate that 13 to 2 fewer Zoroastris this year. These are how much they've gone down. And the reds are the increases. Even though there's a 35% increase in USA, it hardly makes up for the losses in India and Iran. This is percentage of non-Zoroastri spouses. We'll skip that. Intermarriages in India and in Fezana Journal in USA. And you can look at all these charts about children and seniors. This is very significant, births and deaths, how the births and deaths are really high in India. And in America, they are better. In Mumbai, in 20 years, we have had 3456 births and 17,000 deaths. Parsis and Iranians, we don't really. So we now have a flavor of the Zoroastri world, where we have come from, where we are going. Each and every one of us shares an awesome responsibility. Today, we are spread around the world. We are in India and Iran, but not only there, but we are all around the world. Our only goal is we should come together and work together, Iranians and Indians and North Americans and everywhere else. We have the resources, we have our children. Do we have the will?